Thank you. But again, I'm really going to avoid ad hominem, which is really tough because it seems to be coming from the other side of this panel here.
Well, I will note for the record that you have not gone ad hominem. And Tim, to be fair, all you've done is abuse Steve. All you've done is abuse Stephen on a personal level. I actually would like to rise above that.
Steven Crowder crushes Tim Miller to his face live on Piers Morgan Uncensored with Piers Morgan, as Steven Crowder and Piers Morgan talk first about Donald Trump's rhetoric versus Democrats and Joe Biden calling half of America garbage. And then Piers Morgan brings in Tim Miller to react to Steven Crowder's comments, and that's when you see the two of them go at it, with Steven Crowder nailing Tim Miller. Folks, let's jump in and I'll react.
Nazis, garbage. The key difference here that we see, and I've gone through this quite a bit because the New York Times has a whole running article, at least between 2015 and 2021, as to all of Donald Trump's insults on Twitter before he was banned. You won't find Donald Trump insulting the American voter like you do with the left. They did refer, we can argue the phantom apostrophe, like you said. I appreciate you recognizing its absurdity. Donald Trump goes after those who are in power, the elites. He refers to the DNC. He refers to the establishment. You may not like him referring to the swamp. You may not like him referring to people inside the Beltway, but he's never gone after the American voters. He actually does respect them, and he's trying to win them over. That's what we're actually talking about. And it's the Achilles heel of the Democrat Party today. They're very elitist. That's the problem with garbage.
Was it still damaging for Donald Trump to have this guy, Tony Hinchcliffe, at Madison Square Garden? I was there, and aside from anything else, the joke fell completely flat in the room, so it didn't work even on a comedic value with him. Although I thought Jon Stewart made a good point that this guy's a roaster. It's what he does. He roasts everybody and everything. But putting that aside, I saw Megyn Kelly and Bill O'Reilly both saying, look, if you're going to get to the last week of a race, you don't want to have people at your rallies insulting the whole of Puerto Rico, given how many Puerto Ricans, for example, are in the state of Pennsylvania, a crucial state. Do you agree with that?
I don't care. And I mean that. I know we're discussing perception. Look, I think there's a huge difference, for example, between a roast comedian or an insult comedian making a joke. I think there's a big difference between that and the sitting president of the United States, between biting baby stints, referring to the American voters as garbage. You may not like one, but I don't think that we should be applying the same standard. Donald Trump has never called anyone garbage. Barack Obama referred to half of America as bitter clingers. Hillary Clinton, at least half of Trump voters as deplorables. And you know what? I've heard people refer to that joke as horrifying. I hate it when people feign offense when they're not really offended. Maybe some people are offended. I think a lot of people aren't that offended by the joke, at least not as much as they let on to be. But I've heard a lot of people refer to it as horrifying, that rally. I don't think a joke from an insult comic is horrifying. You know what I do think is horrifying? I don't know if you know this. Adolf Hitler, the Nazis, killed 6 million Jews. I know it's lost on a lot of people. I think that's horrifying. And I think to belittle the horrifying acts of the Nazi Party, the National Socialist Workers' Party, by referring to Donald Trump as a Nazi, which is largely the reason he was the subject of an assassination plot at least 2 times that we know of, I think that's horrifying. But that's just my opinion, and I'll disagree with people.
Well, I actually agree with you, but someone who doesn't is the host of The Bulwark, Tim Miller, who has this to say in response. Tim? Welcome to Uncensored.
I was just laughing listening to all that, Piers. Donald Trump's never called anybody garbage. Donald Trump called Kamala Harris's advisors garbage just like the other week. Donald Trump said America is a trash can and the world is sending their garbage, which is migrants here. Donald Trump's called me and other people that oppose him in the media the enemy of the people. He's called people human scum. He said that Haitian migrants were eating cats and dogs. Do we need to keep doing this? Like this, like we're going to pretend to be offended on behalf of Donald Trump? I mean, and Steven Crowder, by the way, his whole career, this is why he's on Rumble, not on YouTube, because he got kicked off YouTube because all he does is insult gay people, insult trans people. The only garbage I know is Steven Crowder and Donald Trump. So they're garbage. I don't think all of Donald Trump's supporters are garbage. I think that many of them are good people that have been misinformed by Donald Trump and Steven Crowder's lies.
Stephen, your response.
Yeah, well, look, one thing, I don't like the way that these panels sometimes some people descend into nothing but ad hominem and interrupt each other. So I promise you, I'm going to respect your time, and you will not hear me speak a single time today, not one interruption, until you hear this bell. I just ask that you give me the floor. So not going to address the ad hominem, but I've never been banned from YouTube. As a matter of fact, this will be up on YouTube. The election live stream of the century will be on YouTube as well. Every single example that was just given was not addressed to the American people at large, and not even the Democrat voting base at large. America is for Americans. Are black people not Americans? Are Hispanic Americans not Americans? The qualifier that I have always made, and Donald Trump has always made, and the reason that so many Americans support him is because there aren't those qualifiers of race that we see in identity politics. Every single example, I could go through all of them, the people around Kamala Harris, the people surrounding her are scum and garbage. That's not going to be misinterpreted as Kamala's supporters are garbage. The voters of Donald Trump are deplorable. These people are scum. Kamala Harris is dumb, whatever he said. That's very different from the hatred, the reviling of the American voter.
Yeah, the left is raging out, just like Tim Miller against Tony Hinchcliffe's performance at Donald Trump's rally. And hey, I get it. Not the best plays. I don't think he should have made the joke, but Donald Trump has never called all of Democrats who support Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton or anyone else deplorables, or called half the country. Like, only one side has unilaterally insulted the entire other half, as Steven Crowder has laid out again and again, because it's quite rather obvious that only one side completely insults the other and belittles them and shames them. And I mean, just everything under the book. Donald Trump has insulted all sorts of people. Yes, he's called people bad names. Yes, he's called, far left radicals. I don't know. We could go through the list all day. Yes, he's called people all sorts of things, but he's talking about specific people around the DNC, the far left, Congress. People are helping other people who he thinks he's bad, but he doesn't, he goes into enemy territory to get votes at these rallies, and he's appealing to them. He's not standing in front of them just insulting them, belittling everybody. Again, only one side unilaterally does it, and yet people like Tim Miller, they just excuse it. It's like the insults that Donald Trump, who affect less people, are more hurtful than the insults on the left that insult 1,000 times as many people. It's like, I don't know how they weigh this, but it doesn't really seem to make a whole lot of sense. I mean, let me know in the comments what you think. But yeah, it's like Tim Miller, these people on the left, they never want to hold themselves accountable for the hateful rhetoric and somehow pull these mental gymnastics to justify the ridiculous logic. Leave a like if you're enjoying. Let's get back in.
Yeah, you know what? Tim Miller, what I would say is people on the left, they're very, very quick to be very offended by Trump's rhetoric. This has been going on for 8 years now, that this guy talks in a disparaging way about people. It's unacceptable. It's awful, blah, 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 blah. But you think nothing as a group of constantly flashing the Nazi word around, fascist, Nazi, and now garbage. Why is it one rule for Trump? Why do you want him to clean up the way he talks, but a completely different set of rules for your own side? Why are you allowed to just go around calling people mass murderers?
I'm not. Like I said, the only people I called garbage were Donald Trump and Steven Crowder, because they've acted like garbage by disparaging people their entire careers. That was the whole premise of both of these two guys' careers. Donald Trump's just been a little bit more successful at it. So Joe Biden's statement, I think, was totally nonsensical marble mouth. And I was maybe one of the most vocal people saying Joe Biden shouldn't run for president again. Joe Biden isn't running for president. Kamala Harris is running for president. And she gave a speech on the Ellipse where she talked about how MAGA voters would have and MAGA politicians would have a seat at the table in her administration. So you guys are trying to make something out of nothing, and you're trying to do this fake outrage where it's like in soccer, Piers, where you guys are flopping. You're flopping on the ground, hoping the refs call a foul on Joe Biden, when Donald Trump's whole career has been insults and lies and disparaging people, and also his actual actions have been hurtful. The sexual assault that he committed on women, the fact that he banned people from coming to this country based on their religion, the separating of family. We could just go on and on about Donald Trump's behavior, the cops that got injured at the Capitol because of the riot that he started. So Donald Trump, it's not just his words, it's his actions that have been harmful. And you guys can get mad about what the soon-to-be former president, Joe Biden, incomprehensibly said, but he's not running against Joe Biden. And it seems like a desperate ploy to put on a fancy costume and dress up like an Oompa Loompa.
All right, Stephen, I mean, last time I checked, Joe Biden remains the current president of the United States. He is the leader of the free world. And for him to pop up as Kamala Harris is delivering her supposedly great final mission statement to the electorate on a Skype call, calling half of America garbage, struck me as just, never mind anything else, incredibly bad timing, to the point where you think, was that deliberate? Is he trying to sabotage her?
Thank you. But again, I'm really going to avoid ad hominem, which is really tough because it seems to be coming from the other side of this panel here.
Well, I will note. I will note for the record that you have not gone ad hominem. And Tim, to be fair, all you've done is abuse Steve. All you've done is abuse Stephen on a personal level. I actually would like to rise above that.
His whole career is all he's done is attack gay and trans people. And now he's like, he's getting offended, being called out for it. Just Google his history of his comments about gays, trans people, women. Like he is Mr. Ad hominem. So don't try to be like, oh, I'm Mr. Nice Guy now. Come on, give me a break. Let's be honest.
Stephen?
Okay, thank you for giving me the floor. As far as it being ill-advised, I would say so with Joe Biden. The problem is that Kamala Harris was given so many opportunities to distance herself from Joe Biden. The Biden-Harris administration, she chose not to. She said there's not a thing that she would do differently, and she was one of his most important advisors in all of the decisions that had an impact. Vice presidents aren't always given such an easily identifiable pet project. She was. And I know the talking point is she wasn't the border czar, even though Biden said that. The point is she was in charge of, she was being tasked with discovering the root cause of the immigration issue. Well, we had 3 million under Donald Trump's tenure, and now we have at least 15 to 20 million on the low end. That is a huge impact that affects Americans. If we want to talk about Donald Trump's actions hurting Americans, look, I guess we're back to 2016. The issue is no Americans have lived actions that have harmed them more than the latest administration. They've lived it. They lived Donald Trump for 4 years. They've lived Biden-Harris for 4 years. It doesn't work. It falls on deaf ears. It's like Paul Revere always saying, the exact same economy is coming. The exact same economy is coming. You want to talk about actions that have hurt? I would argue that the actions on the border, the actions on American energy, the policies, which I would like to discuss, have hurt Americans. It's why they're rejecting Kamala Harris. It's why they trust Donald Trump more on issues like the economy and immigration. And by the way, I'm one of them, but the point remains, not one example has been presented. And by the way, I'm not offended by any of this. You haven't heard me feign outrage. I've just tried to describe the situation, why Americans don't like it. Not one example at all of Donald Trump referring to the American people at large as garbage or insulting them as the Democrat Party does every single election cycle.
Yeah, Steven Crowder's right. Tim Miller never gave one. He never gave an example of Donald Trump just unilaterally insulting half of the other people. So I'll give you everything he said about, these people, this people, but he's never gone to say literally the people who vote for Joe Biden are trash or deplorables or garbage or whatever. So you can attack the candidate. Okay, attack the candidate, that's fine. But all of the voters who vote for them, and Donald Trump is only insulting the people that he thinks are bad, the far left radicals, the, crazy supporting terrorists, the, subgroups like that, but not unilaterally all of the voters. And Tim Miller's point, everything that Donald Trump did in his past and stuff like that, how he made his whole career. Well, he made his career on real estate, first of all, and then he made his career in politics, not by insulting people, but by offering people something different. That's what they voted for. And Donald Trump didn't ban Muslims like the far left keeps on wanting to push this narrative. No, he banned 7 countries of people coming from those countries because they were all on a terrorist watch list. And Muslims don't just live in 7 countries. There are other places, so that falls short. And January 6th, they will never let that go because people like Tim Miller are just lost in that. Look, I think Steven Crowder did a pretty good job laying out his case. Tim Miller offered nothing, still just hates Trump. And at the end of the day, yeah, you've got 4 years of each side to compare. 4 years of this or 4 years of that. It's the only time in election history that anyone's actually been able to do that. And people are just going to look at the facts for themselves and decide which path is better for me, my family, and my life. And honestly, I think it's pretty clear. But let me know what you think about that in the comments, folks, and what you thought about what Steven Crowder had to say to both Piers Morgan and Tim Miller on Piers Morgan Uncensored. Thanks for watching, folks. Like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.